Good evening. I want to read a little bit of material from the introduction of my first Do Ask, Do Tell book, written in first published in 1997. Do Ask, Do Tell, a gay conservative flashes back, starting on page Roman 13 in the introduction. This talks about gays and sexual orientation as such. It does not talk about gender identity and the way it's been understood more recently. This is mainly was written during the debate on gays in the military. I'm going to start on here on the first paragraph on page 13. My central question on personal values is this: do we believe in the principle that every adult person is totally responsible for himself or herself? The subjectivistic notion would limit the responsibilities of government to consequentialism. Individuals, through their own conduct and performance, would become their own moral agents. An individual will, in principle, be held accountable for his or her actions, regardless of biological or circumstantial parentage. When may an individual rightfully set her own personal priorities, and when should she consider the recognized and established interests of family and larger community first? Both the liberals and the cultural conservatives would insist the answer to this my essentialist conjecture is no. And the government must, on the one hand, remedy injustices and indigenous inequities among groups, and on the other hand, guide more vulnerable members of society with certain universal yet intangible models for right and wrong and values and motivation, as well as in actual deeds. For common welfare and survival, people need to be protected largely by the state from their most dangerous instincts and compulsions. A more libertarian view would say that if government stops redefining moral values, people can learn on their own to be their own brother's keepers. Free competition eventually rewards individual excellence and provides every hardworking, deserving person appropriate opportunity. The focus on personal responsibility is especially relevant on gay issues. I've always been uncomfortable with the old-fashioned trite notion of my involuntary membership in an oppressed group, minority, perhaps comparable to people of color. Now, connection between race and homosexuality comes across as a lazy rhetorical device. Liberal interpretation of my homosexuality demanded that I ignore my own accountability for what I say and do. My race is benign and totally superficial, and for my ancestors, environmentally adaptive, generic characteristic, a set of characteristics, where my sexual orientation, while possibly having substantial biological roots, has profound implications for my future behavior and for what I find important in other people. Sexual orientation or preference crosses all the political territories covered by other traits, such as race, religion, and gender. But sexual orientation also demands responsibility for the consequences of actions and values that underlie or promote behavior. When I hear cultural conservatives slander homosexuals, I do want to challenge them and force them to admit that their hot air is plain double talk. They want to have it both ways. They talk of toleration, yet elicit disapproval strong enough to stigmatize gays with second-class citizenship and perhaps total exclusion from critical areas of society, such as the military. They make vague charges about homosexuality's challenge to family values without forthright explanations. To put it bluntly, the cultural conservatives see gays as cultural freeloaders who cheat by leading adult lives, which apparently allow them to spend all their resources on themselves with considerable personal agency, by the way, without the adaptive psychological sacrifices, particularly for men, necessary to become providers for women and children. They really don't care very much about what gay men do, even when it includes committing sodomy. It's what they don't do to validate supposed male responsibilities for initiative, domain over the protection of women and children. Gay men, they feel, sap the potential energy out of missionary intercourse. The outright homo hatred described by Navy Lieutenant Tracy Thorne during the debates over the military ban certainly originate with personal fears of vulnerability and inadequacy in sexual and economic performance. Homophobia is easily rationalized by viewing homosexuality as a character disorder. This flaw, fled by a visual perception of with self-image, is supposed to spurn the responsibility to procreate and parent. Homosexual curiosity allegedly obstructs the socialization of men in collective pursuits like the military to protect society, and male homosexual practice is believed to endanger public health. In comparison, racism is much simpler. It comes from a tribalism in which people view survival and well-being as not within their own empowerment, but as a ration or dole given by the state to them through the community with which they identify. Honest debate about homosexuality forces mainstream people to ponder what makes their own lives tick, and this process can make them uncomfortable. Okay, I just wanted to say this in response to a lot of debate that's going on, like about Project 2025 and its implications, and we'll be coming back to that later. But I do thank you for listening.